stuff. But this does not deregulate one thing from the Wall Street banks. It does not. There's a legitimate policy difference on those banks in the middle. You know, how many risk tests to have? That's a legitimate policy difference. But, yes, ma'am. Did somebody have their hand up? Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Mainly to offer, to let you know my support of your support of the mentioned Toomey Amendment, the assault rifle ban. But as we're on this topic, I just want to know, you're discussing Senate Bill 2155, right?
Yes. Yes. Is that the number? Yeah.
So I just want to know why
you mentioned, you know, they're on the smaller end. The fact is that close to 90% of the mortgages will still have the data reported on. So we got one statistic on how many banks and one statistic on how many mortgages, because most of the mortgages are in bigger banks right now. So 90% of the mortgages are not impacted in terms of any new information. Let me back up again. Fair housing laws themselves are not changed, and nor would I support anything that would undergird that. In fact, there's been so much confusion about this that I'm co-sponsoring an amendment with a colleague of mine, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, to actually take that provision out, because there's been so much confusion about it, and I'd love to just take it out. But just so you know, current information is gathered to monitor redlining, and it's patterns. It's not just individual mortgages. It's patterns in communities where there's redlining, where there's discrimination, and so on. None of the current information that's been in place, it changes. As of January, 6 weeks ago, there was another layer of new categories of information. Some, I think, over 30 new kinds of categories to be collected that was added. And at that point, the question was, is the data collected from smaller entities worth the incredible paperwork of these 30-some new pieces of data? Now, Richard Cordray, who was selected by, encouraged by Senator Warren to be the head of the Finance Protection Agency. He actually recommended last year, he's not exactly a guy who's not strong, that for home equity loans, that the data collection, this new data collection, start at 500, or 500 home equity loans and less would not be covered. That's actually currently for home equity loans that Richard Cordray suggested. So this 500 that level is about 2 mortgages a day, 500. If you were giving 2 mortgages a day or 3 mortgages a day, this new level of information would not be collected. Part of it because they said it may in fact not yield enough in terms of patterns in small communities and so on, and may not be worth it. So I say that to you only to say this is close to 90% of the mortgages that are given out would be covered under this in terms of collecting this new higher level of data. But because of the confusion, if there's a way to take this out, because it's not central to the bill, I certainly would be willing to do that, because there's been so much confusion and misinformation about it. But for the record, all current law, nothing changes. New data as of January, which is another layer of paperwork, and questions, levels of questions on data. That's the debate, this sort of phase 2, and who should have to collect. And under the bill, about 90% of the mortgages or home equity loans and so on would still have that data collected on them. Yes?
What can be done by Congress to at least modify President Trump's tariffs?
That's a really good question. The question was, what can be done to modify the tariffs on steel and aluminum? I have to say, if he was really targeting just China, I would be very supportive of that. I think China has been a real issue for us. I wish years ago we actually would have been focused on where, our capacity for steel is made, just because I do think it's a national security issue, an economic issue. But in the world we are in now, we're all integrated, and the impact of something wrong is really, it's going to hurt a lot of people, a lot of jobs, because of what he's done and how he's done it. So, for me, if he would have targeted it, and along with some other things I'd like to see him target on China, I would be fine with that. There's a question about whether or not we can stop that. You could pass a law overturning it. I don't know if Congress would. Maybe. But he has the authority to do it unless there is something passed that would overturn it. He doesn't, under 232 or some of the other provisions, trade enforcement provisions, he doesn't have to get approval to do it, but it could be overturned. So we'll see what happens. Yes, hi.
I've supported you your whole career, and I am a huge fan. And your legislative assistant on the banking committee, Sarah, today was very helpful.
Oh, you talked with her. She said she had a great conversation.
She was fantastic.
Oh, yes,
she was fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I have 3 questions,
Sure.
and they're about this bill. And they're hard questions.
Sure.
And so when you get to the end of my question, I want you to know that if you vote the wrong way on the bill and we end up disagreeing, I'm still going to support you. But I'm saying this with respect, because
I'm maybe more an expert than me.
I'm not on the banking committee.
But
so
I'm gravely concerned that people are going to view the vote differently, not turn out, vote for a third party, vote against you, and that if you vote the wrong way on the bill, you're actually jeopardizing your own reelection. And I say that because I think people are red hot about this issue. So I want to ask about 3 things.
Sure.
And I don't believe your office is giving us the straight story on 3 issues.
Okay.
And I just want to get straight.
Okay.
Because
Sarah's not consciously trying to.
It's your letter. It's what you said last night. The 3 questions are this.
Yeah.
You said that it's about community banks when you're raising the asset limit to take away supervision, and that won't affect stress tests. It won't affect the level of supervision over how their portfolios are managed and how many bad loans are in their portfolios. And what I've been told, and what seems to be uncontroversial amongst 34 Democratic senators, is that these are big banks. They're called mega banks. Their assets in the trillions. It's Section 401 of this bill. And by raising the asset limit to $250 billion, which is bigger than countrywide,
They're about 200.
You would end up with all but 13 of the biggest banks being without the automatic supervision. And the answer I got from your office was, we can trust the Federal Reserve to voluntarily do it, and that's exactly what the Federal Reserve didn't do. And what Barney Frank said was, the level should be $100 billion, and that without the automatic supervision, what's worked well for 10 years, created financial stability in the banking system, prevented a credit bubble, which actually helps community banks. They're profitable, $35 billion in profits, 10% increase. You're actually going to harm community banks, because you're going to make the banking industry go back to their old practices, because we couldn't trust the Federal Reserve to do it until the law mandated this review, and you're going to set up the problem again. So this is my first problem.
Let me answer one at a time. Okay, first of all, we all agreed that it was the top 5, 6, 7, banks, the Wall Street banks that did all this damage, and then you add in Countrywide with their subprime loans and so on. But the fact is, dealing with what's called the SIFI process is only one, on the stress test, is only one of a whole range of ways that these banks up to 250, which are considered regional banks. They're not considered mega banks. I mean, folks are, think the language in hyperbole is getting very, very hot on this, but they are viewed as regional banks. There are multiple ways, safety and soundness and other ways in which they are managed. They will be required to have one stress test. They will just not have to do another unless they are viewed as risky by the Fed in terms of this one piece of it. There's a whole range of other things that they are regulated by, including the issues on derivatives that I'm very familiar with. So this is just one piece, and it's being extrapolated. And let me just say, you know, I have colleagues, I understand, that didn't want to go up against all this and, you know, felt it was easier to vote no, and I appreciate that. I just, policy-wise, I just disagree. So much of what has been said is just exaggerated or not accurate. And so I don't know, at some level, if I can, you know, I could just do it anyway, I guess. But I feel like when I stand before you, that it, you know, and tell you why I'm doing things, you should be able to believe it because it's what I believe is best for Michigan, not because I'm afraid to vote for what I think is the right vote. And so in this case, and you know, people will have to decide. I mean, if they want a Republican, if they want somebody that won't take on the gun lobby and the Trump administration and the prescription drug lobby and the you know and all the other things, you know, or if they want somebody that's going to vote with Trump, then they can do that. They can do that. That's a choice people have. But it would be easy to come and say, yeah, I'm with you no matter what. It doesn't matter if that's. I don't believe what I am primarily hearing is not accurate. So what do I do with that? I mean,
What's inaccurate about what he said?
So can I
it's not accurate because they're not taking all the rules off of those up to 250. They're taking a narrow piece on stress tests. And you know what, part of what we can do with those who are really interested is follow up and we can really get, you know, down in the weeds with you on it. But it's not accurate that big banks and Wall Street banks are all being gutted and deregulated.
I have a list of the banks here and their assets and who.
The big banks are trillions. JP Morgan is $2.5 trillion. So they're
I have
not
a
250.
list. Yes, I do. I
So
have
if
a
I
list
could-
of the banks
Yeah.
that are.
If I could just respond,
yeah, absolutely.
Barney Frank said 2 or 3 of these banks that you say are not Wall Street banks, are not mega banks. He said yesterday 2 or 3 of those banks have the same impact on the economy as a mega bank. Jared Bernstein said that Countrywide had problems unrelated to the subprimes. And I went back because I have 3 books on Countrywide. There's a movie. Jan Bendor's son was there until 5 months before the end and was aware of all the practices. And what you said on the call and in the letter is just plain flat out wrong. That only
Countrywide?
about only subprimes, and when we make them illegal, we didn't need the supervision. And the reason is that the 1.5 trillion in servicing that they were doing was part of their portfolio would have been caught. The number of adjustable rate mortgages, the number of collateralized debt obligations that they were offloading, and if you catch it in the given year, you stop the systemic risk.
But there's nothing that says that they're going to go completely unmanaged.
It makes it voluntary. Sarah said it makes it voluntary, and here's what my problem is.
Sure.
What you're saying, for you to be right, 34 Senate Democrats with very good legislative assistants have to be wrong, and that's what you're doing, is attacking their analysis.
Well,
You're
no, I'm not attacking. I mean, there's been
attacking
somebody.
Paul
well,
Krugman's analysis, Jared Bernstein's
Okay.
analysis, the Americans for
I
Financial
appreciate
Security,
that.
the Office of Management Budget. The Congressional Budget Office said that there's systemic risk from the potential failure.
Slight.
Let's give
Slight.
someone else a chance, Mike. You made
If
your
I have to
point.
land
So
here.
two other questions.
So,
just
so I guess what I would say is what you're saying, though, is that, you know, I'm your senator, and you're believing that I'm not telling the truth, and so that's okay.
Well, there's
but-
other choices. So 2 other questions, because these are facts.
Can you be really brief?
Two brief. The
Really
four-
brief. Ask them both at once, really brief.
Both
then you're done.
both at once. The foreign subsidiaries, which have trillions in assets, and you know who they are, Deutsche Bank, Barclays, UBS, are going to be deregulated under this. And your assistant said no. Secretary Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said the law in the section that changes how they're regulated will open them to regulation. We bailed them out,
Okay.
and they were
Now,
very.
This is real easy, because they aren't covered. After Mnuchin said that, we went back and put in language in the manager's amendment that's very specific. Those foreign banks are not affected. And because of what Mnuchin said, where he implied they were, that has gotten changed.
Will you sit down with Marcus Stanley at AFR and talk it out? Because I think you're wrong, and there are at least 28 senators on your side of the aisle that
Well-
disagree with you. The third is,
Well, there's various things happen. Okay.
okay, so the third is in the Wall Street Journal today, because you said in your letter that we got yesterday, and you said on the call that big banks are not having their regulations eased up.
I'm talking the big Wall Street banks.
Yeah, big Wall
The
Street
folks
banks, the
with
biggest
trillions.
ones, the biggest
Yeah.
ones, Citibank, all the
Right,
big ones.
right.
Okay, Wall Street Journal said today that that's not true. And in an article that I urge everyone to read, they said you're changing in this law, in section 402 and 401, the asset requirements so that the cash on hand they have to survive for 30 days can include municipal bonds. And Phil Swigley, who was a top Treasury official under George W. Bush, said this is extraordinarily outrageous. And they quoted a series of people who said that this will ultimately produce a federal guarantee of the municipal bond market, and we'll end up having to bail it out because they'll load up.
Talk to you. I would be happy to talk to you about that issue.
Okay.
I would be very happy
Okay.
to talk to you about that issue. I guess what I would say is in the climate in general that we are in today, you know, for us as Democrats, the easy vote would be just to vote no because of the folks that say it's all about the big banks and everything else, and I'm fighting, you know, against the Republicans all the time. My analysis in looking at this just was that on balance, I want healthy credit unions and small and regional banks in Michigan, and I'm not interested in having it all be J.P. Morgan and Citibank and Bank of America and so on. And for us, so for me, on balance, it's just better for Michigan. So we'll talk more. I will, seriously, we'll talk more.
So Sherrod Brown has an amendment on the foreign banks.
Give someone else a chance, it's okay.
And that's all I'm asking.
Well, there's an amendment on foreign banks that's been put into what's called the manager's amendment to clarify it, and I support that. I'll support that. Absolutely support that. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Let me go over here first, then come back. Yes, sir.
I have a question about winning.
Winning.
2018
Yes.
and 2020.
Yes.
So in order to fight big banks and pharmaceutical companies
Yes.
and fight for unions,
Yes.
people like
Yes.
me, little guys,
Yes. Yes.
messages matter.
Yes.
Tell this crowd what is the right messaging for winning in 2018 and again in 2020 so that we can win in Congress and the White House.
Absolutely. Well, this is about standing up for people versus their standing up for the wealthy and the well-connected, period. I mean, that's what, on every single issue, this is about us standing up for people, for people's jobs, for people's health care, for education, including lowering the cost of college and creating opportunities for kids that don't want to go to college. And so it's all about standing with people in this country to give them an opportunity to a fair shake to be able to be successful in America. I think the second piece of that is about understanding that this is a fight for who we are right now in our country. This is a fight for our values. It's a fight for who we are. I mean, when I think about Charlottesville and what this president said, and think about people who used to hide under sheets who now pull the sheet off, stand in front of the mic with the most bigoted, racist comments ever, or walking down the street with torches, or people that have gone after young people because of who they love or who they are or what their religion is. This is a fight for who we are, plain and simple, plain and simple. And so, you know, we can have honest policy discussions when we are in the majority and winning and being able to, you know, move forward and get and have the right things happen that we want to have happen. But I think the heart and soul of who we are in this state and in this country is on the ballot. And we've got to all stand together and take this place back.
Yeah, I just had a question about, you know, Trump's budget has cut so much from us.
Yeah.
And loaded it up for corporations and industries and stuff. And I just was really amazed that when the budget thing came out, they're trying to cut disability insurance and Medicaid and all these things, right? That somehow the Democrats all decided to plop on $68 billion more to the Pentagon budget.
Well,
What the heck is that about?
Okay,
I think, I mean, at one time they did an audit on that Pentagon, and they lost billions. Nobody knew where the
Yeah.
hell the money went.
I'm all for doing an audit. And
Me too, but the thing is, they can't keep throwing money at wasteful stuff. You know?
I understand.
When everybody here lost jobs with the audit, okay, they were all told to go to the OCC and get another line of work. And the thing is that, you know, they can do the same with the, you know, cut out all these wars and all this other Pentagon stuff and find their own way to find another job.
that's a really good question. Let me tell you sitting and looking at, they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House. So the negotiation on the budget was, if they wanted an increase on defense, we got an equal increase on healthcare, education, medical research, and so on, which is what happened. So we weren't in a position to stop that, but what we ended up with was a 10-year extension, which I helped lead, of what we call My Child in Michigan, Children's Health Insurance. We usually do it 1 year at a time. We got 10 years of My Child. We got 2 years extension on community health centers. We got additional money for veterans health care, $3 billion more for opioid and mental health services. We've got $4 billion we're going to put back into lowering the cost of college. It's going to take more of that, but to take an initial step of $4 billion on college loans. We were able to get some stop them on their efforts on doing away with rural water and sewer loans, and we were able to put some money into internet, high-speed internet. So basically, there was a whole range of things that we basically had a choice, and just we couldn't stop what they wanted, but we stopped them from just doing what they wanted. So that in order to do what they wanted, they had to also invest in people, in education and healthcare and job training, and we put back the Great Lakes funding, and we did the things that we wanted to see. So in the climate that we're in, I mean, that ended up being actually a big victory for us that we were able to do it. And I'm going to go over here, a couple of questions, and we're going back and forth. Yes?
My concern about the upcoming election for 2018 and for 2020 is, in past history, at least my perception has been that the Democrats have not, and I am a Democrat,
Sure.
but that the Democrats have had too much infighting about things and not presenting a united front. I'd like to see those that are considering running for president in 2020 not to have 15 people competing for that job, and to have a platform put together now so that there's a consistent message among all Democrats saying this is what we believe,
Sure.
these are the things we need to do.
Well, we would love that, but we're Democrats. So what I will say, first of all, is that we've got it, we're focused on 2018, and then we'll turn to 2020, and right now, we joke about like half my caucus is running, and all kinds of other people, and governors, and all kinds of other people, and that will sort its way out at this point. But I think your first message about being together is absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. The Republicans want to divide us at every point. That's why they're doing what they're doing and bringing up things and trying to divide us. That's what they want, and we cannot let that happen. We shouldn't be doing that. I'm not out criticizing other Democrats, even if I disagree with them, because I think that divides us, and I think that's really the wrong thing to do right now. I also think that there are some areas where we all feel passionate about. What got me into politics was healthcare. And so, we have different healthcare ideas. And what I say to folks is that the big picture is everything we want increases healthcare. Every proposal and lowers costs. Every proposal they have takes away healthcare and increases costs. And so if we can broadly say we want to increase healthcare, quality healthcare, and lower costs, and then when we are the majority, we can have great policy discussions about what's the next step, right? But if we let differences in what the next step is get in the way of us getting there, then the folks that want to take healthcare away are going to win. And so, that's the big thing. I'll never forget James Carville saying, Republicans want to win and Democrats want to be right. Well, we need to win, and we need to be together, and that's, and then we'll do what we all believe in. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks.
I'm sorry? Oh,
shoot, okay?
Well, thanks for coming here today.
Yes.
So my question is about gun control. You know, my son's 2.5. He's gonna be going to school in 2 years. I never want to turn on a TV again and see that 20 kindergartners have been killed by these weapons of destruction. Yeah, it is a question. Thank you. So the question is, what can we do as a community? Because this is something we need to change. And what can we do not only nationally, but locally to make this change happen? And how can we do it as a
You know,
Congress?
I think that's a really, really important question. And in the past, you know, it seems like we try and nothing happens. It feels different to me now, actually.
Yeah.
It feels different. And I think young people are helping us feel different because they're not going away. And we, as I said, we need to make sure we're not going away either. In order to make something happen, it's going to have to maintain, first of all, the grassroots. The March for Our Lives is really important. They're talking about millions of folks coming into DC, but there's going to be marches here, I think it's the 24th. Yeah, here in Michigan, and we need to show up. Even if you think emails and phone calls don't make a difference, they do on healthcare. That constant push to stop the ACA repeal really did end up making a difference. I think one of the things that's different is corporate America. And I think, you know, Delta Airlines, which is so big in Michigan, should be getting all kinds of thank you letters from us and support, you know, for what they're doing. Or, you know, others that are deciding to make different decisions.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be saying, I'm going to go shop at your store because you're doing the right thing. And so that it becomes a consumer movement, because I really think a consumer movement is going to get people's attention a whole lot more. And then the consumer movement, you know, then the next step is to say to those businesses, join us in Congress pushing. That should be the next thing. Thank you for what you're doing, but let's take it the next step and do something in Congress and use that corporate piece. So I think, you know, locally, responding both at the Capitol in Lansing, frankly, as well as here, but also really trying to gauge the corporate community. They're responding because they see their customers responding. And so it can be a consumer movement. You know, just take it back to one other issue, and just as an example. Net neutrality. Burger King did this great video on net neutrality. Anybody see it? You should go on YouTube and see it. Now, Burger King doesn't care about net neutrality. I mean, that's not their issue, net neutrality. But they have determined their customers care about net neutrality. The young people that come in care. So they did this whole piece that's very funny, very clever, about how fast you could get your how fast you could get your Whopper, based on what you were willing to pay in terms of response time. It's very funny. It's very funny. And you go like, well, why would they do that? They're judging their customers. They're going where their customers are. And so I think on this issue, that needs to happen. And we've already seen national, you know, businesses responding. And I'm thanking them. I'm sending out, and down, you know, Delta's national or international headquarters is in Atlanta, Georgia, and there was a congressman or state senator, somebody who, state senator was it, that was going to, they took away some tax credit from Delta and said, so I called and said, hey, we got a big hub in Detroit. We'd be happy to have Delta's international headquarters in Detroit. Why don't you come on up to Detroit? You know, so to me, that's the new piece of this. That's the new piece of this, to be able to help. So on this note, you know, I'd be happy to answer. Can we do we do two? Okay, let me go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we talk all the time. Individual, I mean, we talk all the time. Results is wonderful. We talk all the time. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and we'll be yes. Get the potholes fixed. Yes, we need to get the potholes fixed. I think everybody who just got a little tax cut from the state should send it back with a note. I don't want my $50 fix my road. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, it's a basic service. It's one of the basic responsibilities of government. is infrastructure. And I think it's absolutely irresponsible, both federally and at the state level. I really do.
Senator, what's going to happen to the dreamers now that DACA has been fired
Thank goodness we have 3 branches of government, because the courts have at least temporary, at least at the moment, been able to stop this from taking effect. It's terrible. I've talked to, we have 10,000 young people in Michigan who qualify for DACA, some of them came here as infants, some came at 8 or 9 or 10 years old. They know no other country. Many of them know no other country. They don't know the language of any other country. I had a young person say to me, who was from Poland, was brought here by her mom when she was a baby because of some violence. She said, if you're gonna send me back to Poland, you might as well send me back to anywhere in the world that's all the same. I don't know this country. I don't know the language. I know nothing about it. You might as well send me to Guatemala or send me to, it doesn't matter because I don't know this. So all I can tell you is that we will continue to do everything we can. We thought we had something. And the president's instincts and the people around him are horrible. In the end, it's all about attacking immigrants and pitting people against each other. It's really horrible. And we'll continue to push, and we'll continue, and thank goodness we have the courts. So, yes. Hi.
My name's Leah. I'm a graduating medical student from Wayne State.
Yay! All right.
Here to ask about, you talked about drug prices.
Yeah.
I'm also concerned about drug prices on behalf of my patients,
Yes.
probably on behalf of pretty much everyone in this room.
Yeah.
And I believe that the only way to really lower drug prices is to take profit out of our health insurance,
Right.
our healthcare industry completely. And
Woo!
And I'm here to ask you, when are you going to sign on to Senator Sanders' bill?
Sure. Well,
A lot
actually,
of people in this room are probably big supporters of single payer.
and I
Yes.
appreciate that very much. Very much. Yeah, oh, go ahead.
And as part of a winning strategy for 2018, I'm convinced that this is the platform that people want to hear, and this is the platform that will get people to the polls to vote for you.
Right.
I appreciate that very much. And I am very supportive of, continuing to add more healthcare. I have to tell you that bill, I'm not going to sign on to because the way it's written, it undermines, it says within 5 years, all private insurance would go away. We have an awful lot of people in Michigan with private insurance. Many of them have negotiated that for years, given up pay raises to get good insurance.
How much here for their private insurance?
Keeps
5
going
years,
up.
Well, I guess
How much is everyone paying for their monthly premiums with their private insurance? Is anyone here happy with their private health insurance?
No.
I have a lot of folks I'd be happy to have you talk to that are part of the Democratic Coalition that actually would answer that differently. This is something we've got to work on together.
That's the problem.
Well, this is what I went back to on healthcare, because we have several ways. I support as a way to flush out the issues, making Medicare a public option. That would be a way to be able to focus.
I don't think there should be insurance that's different for poor people.
I don't either. I spent my whole life in them.
Are we covered by the same kind of insurance?
I love you.
We all deserve the same kind of excellent insurance.
Yes. Woo!
I appreciate your passion and I agree with you. The issue is how do we get there? That is the issue. This bill that just ends everything in 5 years is going to actually be a problem for a lot of folks because it's not fleshed out on how it would even work.
Are your
And so
donors?
that particular bill is what we call a message bill based on, it's a values bill, which I appreciate. It's about an idea and a value, and I appreciate that. For me, putting my name on something that is not yet fleshed out on the details that will have some effects that are not good for some people in Michigan, it's just not what I want to do. So what I'm
concerned about, that bill was written by excellent organization, Physicians for a National Health Program.
I appreciate
public
that.
Policy experts.
I appreciate that.
Tell me which parts of that bill.
I'd be happy to sit down with you. It ends private insurance, first of all, in 5 years. It's not clear that we would be in a position to do that within 5 years. Many experts have said this is a 10-year process. This is going to take some transition, or I'm not sure. But I believe one of the best ways to begin that process, I have a bill that would allow people to buy in to Medicare at 55 as one step. I have that bill. I've introduced it. I'm also supporting and co-sponsoring the bill that would make Medicare a public option so people could choose and you could have a transition and you could work out how everything works. So I'm not disagreeing with the aspirational goal. I'm saying that this particular bill does it in a way that I think ultimately won't work. And so this goes back to what I said before. We can debate various parts of policies that we all care about, right? And make those dividing lines for us. People can decide, if I don't sign that bill, they're not supporting it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And so all the work I do in healthcare, everything that I do, if folks would rather have somebody who wants to take away everybody's healthcare, that doesn't make sense to me. What makes sense to me is let's get everybody elected and then let's do what you're talking about of working together to get it done. So, I'm sorry?
Fire them. The community health centers and supporting CHIP is obviously incredibly appreciated.
Question
asked and
answered.
Yeah, let's have order, let's have order. I don't know.
No, I understand that. I understand that.
Let's have order, we're gonna
So,
do another question.
yeah, I appreciate the passion very, very much, and I would tell you that, that my judgment on this, looking at it, and healthcare is something I know a ton about. I've been doing healthcare policy my whole life, and I've led the efforts, helped lead the efforts to protect the ACA, and on and on and on. But the point is that we're all wanting the same thing, so let's not create dividing lines that are not necessary here when we all want more better quality healthcare. I would love to be in a position of being in the majority and then having a discussion about that bill versus Medicare as a public option versus Medicare at 55. That would be such a treat to be in a position where we could actually have that discussion about that. We're in a position right now of sabotaging the current bill. They've got, the next up is that $1.5 trillion that they created in deficit by the tax cuts. They want to take out of Medicare and Medicaid $1.5 trillion. So I just don't have the luxury right now when I'm trying to protect Medicare and Medicaid and keep children's health insurance going and community health centers. I don't have the luxury even of time to sit down and work that out at the moment. But we get the majority, and we'll be able to do it, and it will be a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stabenow. Can we give Stabenow a round of applause for coming